Climbing. To fall properly, you need to get high. This instructional video was prepared for everyone who does not feel high enough and is ready to do something about their situation. Climbing is as easy as doing yoga. The major difference being...
Oof, that sounds too hard. I think I'll take the stairs. Climbing, too much upper body strength. Let me introduce you to stairs, the best way to get high in video games. Like higher elevation. Okay, anyway, I don't know if you pay way too much attention to physics in video games like I do. You might have noticed when a set of stairs in a game is just a little bit off, or maybe your character's foot kind of clips through the ground, or you get caught when trying to walk up something. But really, can stairs, they can't really be that bad of a problem, right? I mean, they've been in games for such a long time, someone must have sorted it out. Well, I mean, you see the length of this video, and you might be asking yourself, is Nick really going to talk about stairs for more than 11 minutes? Yes. I thought stairs were simple at first too. Let's talk about why stairs suck in games, and more importantly, why they don't have to. There are a few key things game developers can do to make the stairs easier to navigate and look much smoother, but a lot of them don't do it. I'm not saying that I've solved stairs, but I think I'm pretty darn close. So before we dive into that, let's first agree on what stairs are. They usually look something like this on screen, a set of steps at about a 90-degree or so angle to the ground, and if it's less than 90 degrees, you'd expect the player to slide up it like a slope. If the player walks into an object at a 90-degree angle, they'd probably want to stop because they're walking into a wall or something. This makes sense. However, what if this wall is low to the ground? Well, then it's not a wall, it's a step. When the player encounters a step like this, we don't expect him to stop like he does when he walks into a wall. We expect the player to go up the steps smoothly. It should look natural and not jittery. It should be fast as well. I mean, even though the surface area of the step is more than that of a ramp, walking up a set of stairs shouldn't be slower than walking up a ramp. Most built-in character controllers have support for stairs, and this is important because this kind of a step isn't only found in a staircase and shows up more places than you might think at first. I've dubbed this the stair problem as it's led to so many issues in developing my OpenKCC project. So you might be thinking this already, but what if we just hide the stair problem behind a ramp? I mean, isn't this like a lot of old video games did? Make the staircase into a ramp for the character controllers so they can slide up it like a slope, and then you can just round the edges of the character controllers so that they can bounce off any of those rough surfaces. And there, the character interacts realistically with most terrain, and you don't gotta worry about it. Lots of games can get away with doing this. I mean, even big franchises like Pokemon, Overwatch, and Skyrim use these kinds of tricks for making their 3D worlds easier to explore. If you add some inverse kinematics for the player feet to have them lock onto the ground, with a little animating magic, the player will hardly notice the hiding of the stair problem. Inverse kinematics is an animation technique to set the target position of a rigged avatar and compute how the joints and the body positions would have to align to reach there. Think like if you stretch your hand out to grab something, your elbow bends in a specific way to reach it and, won't move like a brick or detach from your shoulder to reach it. Assuming the IK doesn't totally glitch out, it should be fine. If you put enough of these tricks together, you can mostly ignore the problem of stairs from many video game scenarios. Some games even have their colliders float above the ground to make use of smoke and mirrors to kind of move the character visually down to the ground and just avoid the stair problem entirely. So if hiding the stair problem works well enough, let's try that. We just need to replace the stairs with a ramp. Easy. It'll take some work, but it's just a one-time cost. Now, wait a second. It looks like you forgot something. That little curb between the road and the sidewalk? Yeah, that's also a step. You don't want the player getting stuck whenever they try to walk into that, so let's put a ramp there. Oh look, on the side of that ramp for the staircase, the front corner of it's a little bit jagged. The player could get stuck on that unwell. Let's round that corner out so the players don't get stuck. And now we have a million little things to correct about our map, or just accept that some stairs can't be hidden easily. Don't even get me started on curved staircases. Some games do take this path of beautifully crafting a world like Breath of the Wild and make sure that stairs are all interactive and responsive. Sometimes there are design flaws that the character can get stuck in, but otherwise it worked pretty well. And if your character can't handle walking over some broken steps or jagged terrain, just get rid of them or don't let them get too close to it. But now you've just shifted the work of dealing with stairs from the character movement programmer to the level designer. You can't really hide the stair problem, you just put that work somewhere else. Now, while some games may be able to get away with this problem on level design, my OpenKCC library is for any game developer to use, and I can't just shift that work to anyone that wants to use it. I mean, I don't want to include a disclaimer, this doesn't work with stairs unless you do X, Y, Z, and I would rather just kind of solve the stair problem. Walking down steps is easier than walking up steps, so let's look into that first. When the player walks forward and they hit a staircase, they should keep their feet glued to the ground of each step. If we were to just move the player forward and not respect the steps at all, the player would just start to move like a little bouncy ball, going off the edge and then hitting the ground, and off the edge and bouncing on top of the stairs. Even if we replace it with a ramp, this would still happen. So to get around this problem, for both steps and for ramps, we can simply snap the player down whenever they move. After the player moves, we check if the player is close to the ground, then snap them down. That way we avoid looking like a bouncy ball and leaving the ground whenever we go down a slope. To snap the player down, we just need to cast the collider in a downward direction, similar to how we check if the player is grounded in my previous video about player movement. Then, when they hit the ground, we can check if it's within some small threshold, and then we can just teleport the player down that distance. However, we can't apply this all the time. Think of like walking off a cliff. You don't want the player to instantly snap down to the base, we want them to fall normally. Additionally, if the player is falling towards the ground, we don't want to teleport them the last few inches away from the ground and snap them down because, that would just look weird. We also need to turn off snapping if we're trying to jump. I mean, if we leave snapping turned on and we keep on jumping, we just never leave the ground, and that would just be embarrassing. When snapping is added correctly, we can walk down steps well, and we're halfway to solving the stair problem. Woot! Oh, yeah, right. We also need to go up the steps, too. Well, we have that rounded collider idea from earlier. Let's see how well that works. If we try and use this rounded collider, it's not going to look very smooth. You're going to kind of switch between bouncing up a step and then walking forward, and you're not going to have a very constant velocity as you'll be switching between these two states very quickly. It's kind of a mess and just doesn't look right. And also, what about overhangs? I mean, this is another edge case to look at, just like the street curb. If we hit an overhang, we won't be able to just slide up it because it's a really jagged edge. This overhang scenario is like if the bottom of the step is behind the top of the step, so it's kind of jutting out forward. And there are also even more edge cases to consider that I didn't mention besides just overhangs. I mean, we could do the same thing as before and put this work on the level designer and just hide the problem, but that's just shifting work. And while this might work for some games, I want to at least have a partially working solution to this half of going up the stairs as well. So earlier we discussed about snapping down steps. What if we just do the inverse and snap up steps? So like whenever you hit a step, have the player teleport up and then just go forward normally. This solves the problem of bouncing off the step and moving at an inconsistent velocity. We just need a way to figure out how to teleport the player to the top of each step. We can use the collision data to get the height of the step, which even works for overhangs as well. Nice. Teleporting the player up to that height and then check if we walk forward. The reason we need to check if we can walk forward some minimum distance is because if we don't and just let the player teleport up any solid surface, they just walk straight up walls and cliffs. We also need to set some limit to the maximum step up height to stop the player from climbing up low walls. So from this we have two variables, max snap up height and min snap distance. Snap height is the snap up height, the maximum step height that we can climb up, and the snap distance is the minimum step depth that we would expect to be walking on. I mean, you wouldn't be able to walk on a staircase that steps are just like a couple inches thick. You'd need at least at some length to put your toes on there, otherwise you'd just slide right off. We can use the same collision algorithm as we used earlier for checking when the player snaps down, but instead going forward to check if we hit anything. If there's solid ground to stand on in front of the player, then we can let them teleport up and move forward. If not, we just leave them back at the base because they're probably walking into a wall. We have to add a final little check to snap the player down after we teleport them up. This is because otherwise they teleport up and could be floating on top of the step and then just fall down. I mean, that would just look kind of silly. So this is done just like snapping down before and doesn't cost much extra compute time. So, does snapping up and down solve the stair problem? Well, as a lawyer might say, it depends. It works in most cases, including some of the edge cases we discussed earlier. It doesn't snap over walls, allows for configuration of what's considered a step, and works on the sides of ramps and overhangs. However, it does involve making more collision checks whenever the player bounces into something, so it's not free. However, adding an extra collision check is so simple that it's not really a big issue. Whether you do 3 or 4 ray casts on a player movement doesn't make that big of an impact. Sometimes, if collision physics is off and the player is in some kind of complex situation, it won't work every time, but we can hide those mistakes of a rounded collider and by using the neat tricks we discussed earlier, like inverse kinematics for the player feet. So overall, I'd say snapping mostly solves the stair problem. So, now that you know the solution to the stair problem, you shouldn't accept kind of bad stair implementations from your favorite video games. Developers can add extra polish like this if they're given enough time and resources. If your character gets stuck clipping onto the edge of some small box or ledge in the game, you know it's because they never addressed the stair problem. Although, I really wouldn't be too hard on these game developers. They're a lot of times under time crunch pressure and need to satisfy more stakeholders than just making a character look nice like I can do with my library. With this knowledge, you can look at some of the foot inverse kinematic magics in games that you play. You might be surprised about how many games use this trick to hide collision detection. I should probably add that to my projects too, now that I bring it up. Well, I hope you found this discussion of the stair problem interesting. I'll be making a video on how this mole character works coming up in the next couple of weeks, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and have a great day!